The horrific shooting of journalists Alison Parker and Adam Ward while they were broadcasting live on breakfast television at a shopping centre in Virginia has reignited calls for tighter gun controls in the United States. They were interviewing a guest on a local CBS station when shots rang out. We can take a look at what some of you have been saying on the question of what from these tragic events should be broadcast. Well, Jane has tweeted, "The world isn't a pink, fluffy place. News shouldn't be sanitised. Gratuitous sensationalism should be avoided." And Matt has tweeted, "Use all of the footage." Joss World treats that all of it. Just give me a warning if it might be disturbing. I should be the judge of what my eyes see, not you. And Dave has said it depends how much you want to encourage publicity-hungry psychopaths to do it again. That, of course, a discussion on what the media should be showing. We've seen many of the front pages. We're not showing them to you today, with quite graphic images of what happened the moment before the shooting took place. Well, the two journalists were killed by Vesta Flanagan, a disgruntled former colleague at the same television station, WDBJ7. He posted a video of the murder online and then turned the gun on himself after a car chase. Flanagan, who was also known professionally as Bryce Williams, was dismissed from WDBJ7 television 2 years ago. He claimed he suffered racial discrimination. And in a fax that's emerged, he's sent by Flanagan to ABC News shortly after the attack, he described himself as a human powder keg waiting to go boom. The gunman's family released a short statement read by a friend, Amber Bowman, who's a former classmate of Flanagan.
It is with heavy hearts and deep sadness we express our deepest condolences to the families of Alison Parker and Adam Ward. We are also praying for the recovery of Vicki Gardner. Our thoughts and prayers at this time are with the victims' families and with WDBJ television station family. Thank you. That's all.
24-year-old Alison Parker was a reporter for WDBJ7's morning show, and she's been described as a rock star reporter who loved Mexican food and whitewater kayaking. Her boyfriend, Chris Hurst, who was a presenter at the same station, said that they were a perfect couple.
This is my memory of her. When we had our 6-month anniversary, she made a scrapbook for me and put in all of the pictures that we spent together for the first 6 months. Even pictures I didn't want to be in there, she put them in there. We were a perfect couple.
So there's once again a debate in the United States about strengthening gun laws, a point reinforced by President Obama last night, who called for common-sense gun safety measures.
Gun-related incidents around this country dwarfs any deaths that happen through terrorism. And we're willing to spend trillions of dollars to prevent terrorist activities, but we haven't been willing, so far at least, to impose some common sense gun safety measures that could save some lives.
Well, since the start of the year, it's reported that there have already been 247 mass shootings in the United States. In 2013, the most recent figures, there were more than 30,000 deaths by firearms. That's half the number of American soldiers who died in Vietnam. One study has even suggested that 2015 is the year that gun-related deaths will overtake car-related deaths in America. And America, by far and away, leads other developed countries when it comes to gun-related murders. 6 times as many as Canada, 15 times as many as Germany. Research by the Harvard School of Public Health's Injury Control Center suggests that it's because the US has far more guns than other developed nations. Let's discuss this. Let's ask if America needs to tighten up gun control laws. With me now is Evan Edinger, an American who's lived in London for the past 3 years. Evan grew up thinking that the freedom to own and use guns was a good thing. That has changed, though, since he's moved to Britain. And also with us is Alex Marlowe, editor-in-chief of the conservative online news site Breitbart News, and who has a pro-gun stance and is joining us from Los Angeles. Welcome to you both. Evan, your reaction first to what's just happened in the United States.
When I first watched everything that happened, I wasn't expecting what happened. Just to be so on screen, I genuinely felt sick. I didn't know I was at work at that time, and I didn't know what to do or how to feel, and I felt really upset that I've come from that, and I felt as an American, I felt really embarrassed that this still happens, and it just happens every day. Every day is a different shooting that you hear about, and it just made me feel really sick.
And as I said when I introduced you, you came from the United States,
yeah.
And you were a firm believer in your right to bear arms.
I was when I lived there. I was in that culture. That was just something you grow up with. That's the number 2 amendment. You know, that's what you believe in. You have the right to bear arms to take up militia against the government if something happens. But it's 2015. I feel like the government has so much more. Even if we did take up a militia, it wouldn't. The original purpose for that amendment isn't really useful now, in my opinion. And I don't agree in guns. No.
Alex, your thoughts on this? The reason for the right to bear arms, to be able to take militia against the government, this certainly isn't happening when we see people being shot while doing their jobs every day.
No, I think that, not to correct you guys if I could be so forward, but I think that the Second Amendment, the way it's perceived by most legal scholars of the United States, it is a pretty much universal freedom that the right to bear arms should not be infringed. I think there is a lot of wisdom in it because it was based off of not recreation or not even self-defense, which I think is a very good use for firearms, but it was actually about you not wanting to have a government that is usurpacious and tyrannical be able to take over the populace and not have the populace be able to defend themselves. So I think that's something that was the wisdom in the Constitution. And I think if you poll legal scholars, they would say that's what it's about. And that I think that that's something that would stand up to public polling as well.
Thanks very much for that point, Alex. Evan, perhaps it comes down to gun control rather than the right to bear arms.
I mean, a lot of our first world countries have already taken steps to decrease the amount of guns. I know Australia took away most of them, but you can still have legal arms in Australia. And yet, ever since 1996, when they had a mass shooting and they introduced law to decrease the amount of guns in Australia, I believe it's 50% the amount of homicides due to firearms has gone down. So I feel like if the U.S. instituted any type of law to restrict certain type of guns or make it a bit harder for the wrong type of people to have their hands on guns, it doesn't make sense not to.
Alex, when we've looked into the background, obviously, of the shooter, and he'd gone through his background checks, passed them, had, legally held a gun, but obviously there are problems that people are slipping through. Too many people are slipping through the net who are able to bear arms and shoot innocent people.
Yeah, it's a fair point because we talk about background checks and no one wants bad people to have guns. People want good people to have guns and not just the government and the bad guys. That's what the Second Amendment, the pro-Second Amendment crowd would argue. When you're seeing in Charleston and Chattanooga and Garland and Tucson, you're seeing the Aurora Theater shooting, people passing background checks. So again, we talk about gun control, but really what's worked, what gets through, what gets tried. For example, in a few years back, we had a large capacity, large caliber weapon ban. That did nothing to affect the murder rate or the homicide rate as well. In this case, we're talking about a pistol and a guy who passed a background check. So I don't know if anything Evan would propose would have actually prevented him from getting it. So what's more interesting to me is that we have a man who clearly had racial motivations, who said he was bullied because he was gay, and we've already moved on from those things, which the mainstream media in America fomented this sort of racial tensions with any of these shootings that have occurred in recent years that have made so much news. And now we're just talking about the pistol again, which seems sort of short-sighted.
Alex, before I let you go, I'd be really interested to hear your view on how this has been covered in the media where you are. We're going to have a debate later on this programme about whether you show the shooting, how much is too much to show. What are your thoughts and how has the media reacted in terms of coverage?
In terms of showing the shooting, I think it's a very good debate. We elected to show it at our website, Breitbart News, and we also have a great London site called Breitbart London that you could access from there. We elected to show it. We think that you do have to confront this evil head on and see it, but I do respect people who do not want to give publicity to the shooters as well.
OK, and Evan, your thoughts on what's being shown and whether it's too much or people are prepared to see it, want to see it?
I feel like I saw a website where it was blocked out and said you can follow and read the rest of this if you want to see it. So that gave me kind of like an extra 5 seconds to go, OK, I'm ready to see this. But I've seen, there was a newspaper yesterday that literally photoshopped an explosion coming out of the screenshot of the gun. And I felt really like, how are they're monetizing this person's death and this terrible tragedy. And that I just wasn't a fan of.
In fact, I'll just make the point that we've seen that photo and we do actually believe that's a real photo, not a Photoshop photo. It's on a couple of newspapers. So that's what we understand at the moment, to make sure we give the papers a right of reply. Alex, thank you very much for joining us. Evan, thank you very much for joining us as well. Later in the programme, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the graphic images and clips of the shooting that many newspapers, broadcasters and websites are showing this morning. We'd like to know if you think the media's gone too far or not. Do get in touch, please. And we've already had some thoughts. Paul has texted saying newspapers, television news and media, quite rightly, shouldn't be censored from showing real-life horror stories. That's what their purpose is after all. Keep your thoughts coming in, please.